Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So we are reading from srimadbhagavatam, Canto 4, entitled Creation of the Fourth Order, Chapter 11, Swayambhuva Manu. Advises Dhruva Maharaj. One text. He keeps on writing the previous verse. That's the wrong verse. But anyways, I guess we could chant it because it's there. Okay, so we're on 23 today, but 22 is on the board, so we'll chant 22 and read the translation, and then we'll go to 23. Kechit karma vidan yenam svabhavam apade nripa eke kalam pare daivam pumsa kamam utapade Kechit karma vidan tyenam subhavam apade nripa eke kalam pade daivam pumsa kamam utapade. Please chant. Would you like to chant? Translation: the differentiation among varieties of life and their suffering and enjoyment is explained by some to be the result of karma. Others say it is due to nature, others due to time, others due to fate, and still others say that it is due to desire. Okay, so next, text 23. Avyaktasya prameyasya nana shakyada yasya cha navai chikirshitam tata kovidata sabhav sambhavam. The the absolute truth, transcendence, is never subject to the understanding of imperfect sensory endeavor, nor is he subject to direct experience. He is the master of varieties of energies, like the full material energy, and no one can understand his plans or actions. Therefore, it should be concluded that although he is the original cause of all causes, no one can know him by mental speculation. Purport. The question may be raised, since there are so many varieties of philosophers theorizing in different ways, which of them is correct? The answer is that the absolute truth, transcendence, is never subject to direct experience or mental speculation. The mental speculator may be called Dr. Frog. The story is that a frog in a 3-foot well wanted to calculate the length and breadth of the Atlantic Ocean on the basis of his knowledge of his own well. But it was an impossible task for Dr. Frog. A person may be a great academician? Academician? That's not a very common word used. Scholar, or at least I haven't heard it so much in Prabhupada's books. Scholar or professor, but he cannot speculate and expect to understand the absolute truth, for his senses are limited. The cause of all causes, the absolute truth, can be known from the absolute truth himself, and not by our ascending process to reach him. When the sun is not visible at night, or when it is covered by a cloud on the day, it is not possible to uncover it either by bodily or mental strength or by scientific instruments, although the sun is there in the sky. No one can say that he has discovered a torchlight so powerful that if one goes on a roof and focuses the torchlight on the night sky, the sun will then be seen. There is no such torchlight, nor is it possible. The word avyakta, unmanifested, in this verse indicates that the absolute truth cannot be manifested by any strain of so-called scientific advancement of knowledge. Transcendence is not the subject matter of direct experience. The absolute truth may be known in the same way as the sun covered by a cloud or covered by night. But when the sun rises in the morning in its own way, then everyone can see the sun, everyone can see the world, and everyone can see himself. This understanding of self-realization is called Atma Tattva. Unless, however, one comes to this point of understanding Atma Tattva, one remains in the darkness in which he was born. Under the circumstances, no one can understand the plan of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The Lord is equipped with varieties of energies, as stated in the Vedic literature. Prasya Shaktir Vividaya Shuyate. He is equipped with the energy of eternal time. Not only does he have the material energy which we see and experience, but he has also many reserve energies that he can manifest in due course of time, when necessary. The material scientist can simply study the partial understanding of the varieties of energies. He can take up one of the energies and try to understand it with limited knowledge, but still it is not possible to understand the absolute truth in full by dint of material science. No material scientist can foretell what is going to happen in the future. The Bhakti Yoga process, however, is completely different from so-called scientific advancement of knowledge. A devotee completely surrenders unto the Supreme, who reveals himself by his causeless mercy. As stated in Bhagavad Gita, Dadami Buddhi Yogam Tam. The Lord says, I give him intelligence. What is that intelligence? Yena mam upayantite. The Lord gives one the intelligence to cross over the ocean of nescience, ignorance, and come back home, back to Godhead. In conclusion, the cause of all causes, the absolute truth, or Supreme Brahman, cannot be understood by philosophical speculation. But he reveals himself to his devotee because the devotee fully surrenders unto his lotus feet. Bhagavad Gita is therefore to be accepted as a revealed scripture spoken by the Absolute Truth himself when he descended to this planet. If any intelligent man wants to know what God is, he should study this transcendental literature under the guidance of a bona fide spiritual master. Then it is very easy to understand Krishna as he is. Om Gyanidibadandasya Gananjana Shalakaya Chakshulanmaditam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Mukam Kadidivachalavam Pungam Langayate Gidim Yakripatamaham Vande Shri Gurun Diditaranam Vancha Kapladibhishcha Kripasindu Vevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhaktivinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Okay, so I'll read the translation again. Absolute truth, transcendence, is never subject to the understanding of imperfect sensory endeavor, nor is he subject to direct experience. He is the master of varieties of energies, like the full material energy, and no one can understand his plans or actions. Therefore, it should be concluded that although he is the original cause of all causes, no one can know him by mental speculation. So just in case any of us here, we're trying to understand Krishna or Krishna consciousness by mental speculation, this verse says we can't do it, so we can't understand him. So it means that with our material intelligence and our mind and our senses, we can't perceive Krishna. We can't really have any experience of Krishna. So then in the purport, Srila Prabhupada says there are so many varieties of philosophers theorizing in different ways which one of them is correct. And then he says the answer is that the absolute truth, transcendence, is never subject to direct experience or mental speculation. So sometimes people, they try to understand things based on their own limited understanding of things. So in other words, they don't really think outside the box. Or in this case, Srila Prabhupada mentions the Dr. Frog, he doesn't think outside of the well. So Prabhupada mentions the story. There's a little bit more to it, as Prabhupada tells it. For whatever reason, he didn't add the rest of it. So Prabhupada mentions about half of it. Here he says that Dr. Frog, he was in the well and he was wondering the length and breadth of the Atlantic Ocean on the basis of his knowledge of his own well. And 3-foot well. And then Prabhupada said that's impossible for Dr. Frog. And then he left it at that. So as Prabhupada tells the story, and I'm not sure, maybe he got it from his guru or some other place, but there was a frog. Apparently in this story, frogs, they talk to each other. So Dr. Frog was there in the well, and somehow another frog got out and went to the ocean. So then that frog went to the ocean, and he saw the ocean is just, vast, huge, just can't even measure it, right? And then he goes back to the well, and he starts, and he goes to his friend, Dr. Frog, and he says, "Yes, I went outside of this well, and there's a huge body of water, and it's inconceivable. You have a hard time. You will have a hard time understanding it unless you go." So then Dr. Frog was saying, "Oh no, that's this. You're making this up. This is impossible." And then the other frog was saying, "No." So then Dr. Frog, he said, "How big is it? Is it this big?" And then because apparently frogs, I don't know, maybe you've seen in real life or cartoons or movies or pictures or something, but frogs, they could expand, So the frog was saying, "How big is it? Is it this big?" And then he expands. And then the fellow was saying, "No." And then Dr. Frog said, "How big? This big?" And he kept on expanding. And then, at least one version of the story, it says that just, exploded. So he never really found out how big the ocean was. So the point of the, you could say, simple story in some ways is that one can't really understand something based on one's limited experience. So, okay, that's understandable. I mean, most people will accept that. But interesting enough is that a lot of people in this world, they reject things based on them not being able to understand it at the present moment. And many devotees, or at least some devotees, they may reject Krishna consciousness, more or less, usually more than less, on the basis of not being able to understand certain things that don't make sense to them, based on their cultural upbringing and level of whatever, their particular mindset that they have at present. So they just reject it. Like, okay, whatever, there being a spiritual world, or Krishna, the concept of Krishna, or there's so many different things one can reject. Some devotees, they say, because in Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says that this world is just a place of suffering. He says it's a temporary place full of suffering. Some devotees say, oh, well, I don't really accept that. I don't believe that. How is it a place of suffering? I mean, there's a lot of suffering. I mean, I don't know why someone can't accept that. I mean, there's so much mental, so many cases of mental diseases within this country of America and all over the world. Anxiety and, suicide rates are high, and drug addiction and abuse, and just there's so much suffering in the world. So I don't understand why people. I mean, of course, there's whatever happiness and this and that, but Krishna says it's a place of suffering, temporary place of suffering. So sometimes devotees have a hard time with that. There's so many other things. But then, of course, on the other hand, he does say it's a place of suffering, but for someone who becomes a devotee, it says that the devotee who's, makes a particular level of advancement, they see as everything, all the directions just full of happiness. Means that it's not an absolute statement that, it's full of suffering. Yes, in essence, materially, it is full of suffering. But for a devotee, they reach a certain level of consciousness, and actually, they're happy. And it becomes like the spiritual world, for them, at least. So that's a nice thing to remember. So yeah, there's Dr. Frog, and then there's, Srila Prabhupada mentions this idea of the cloud covers the sun, or what to speak of if it's nighttime here. We can't force the sun to come out. It comes out by its own will, right? It's just, there's no torchlight that, if we go on a roof and focus a torchlight in the night sky, the sun will then be seen. We can't see the sun until it appears on its own accord. So similarly, people and us, we cannot force Krishna to reveal himself to us or to be present. So the idea is that Krishna, he will be present, or he'll reveal himself, or he'll make himself available to us once we become qualified. Once we become qualified, then Krishna reveals himself. And that's natural. I mean, you have to become qualified in general to do things. You can't just do things just because you want to. You have to become qualified, generally speaking. Like, for example, to become a doctor, there's many years of education and training under another doctor, and so on, or a surgeon. So it's not that, like Bajranayan Swami points out sometimes, he says that if somebody comes with a knife and says, you go to a local whatever, you're getting something done, I don't know, you're getting some heart surgery or something, and you go to the doctor, and the guy and he comes out with his knife and a screwdriver, and he's got a wild look in his eyes, and you don't see any credentials on the wall. I mean, you're going to run away. I mean, so you want to know, what are your qualifications? So to drive a car, there has to, basic qualifications. So many things. So practically for everything there has to be qualifications. So similarly, there has to be qualifications for seeing Krishna, for having a relationship with Krishna. There has to be qualifications. We have to qualify ourselves. And that process of becoming qualified is to, first of all, theoretically accept that there may be a Krishna. And then once one theoretically accepts that there may be a Krishna, to engage in the process of self-realization or God realization, Krishna realization, in which we will get the reciprocation of Krishna, and we will develop this relationship with Krishna, in which we will become qualified to actually experience Krishna consciousness. So there's a process, just like there's a process for everything else. Now, of course, because it's, you could say, more subtle or metaphysical, then it's not so easy to accept, in the sense that I'm giving an example of a doctor. Well, we have so many experiences of doctors, and so many on the material platform, all these different examples you could give, to become qualified to do something materially. So in the spiritual, you could say, realm, yeah, it's not gross, it's not physical. So therefore, sometimes it's hard to accept that there's a process in which we could realize Krishna, or realize God. But what can be done? I mean, that's the basic idea, that if somebody can't theoretically accept that there's a Krishna, and therefore they can't engage in the process, then, what can be done? The person just remains faithless, or the person just remains not Krishna conscious. So, and they do so many other things. So if somebody, from the srimadbhagavatam, the point of view of the Bhagavatam, a fortunate person will come to that platform of theoretically accepting that there's Krishna and engaged in the process, and a extremely fortunate person will actually make progress and develop the relationship with Krishna. So that's what's being advised, that we engage in the process, and we don't just reject it based on our own limited experiences and knowledge in this world that we've developed. And in other words, to give it a chance, fair chance. And the process has been made very, it's simple, but it's also sublime. And it is, and the process is, Rupa Goswami says, he's quoting some book, I think it's Padma Purana, some ancient book. He says, Ata Shri Krishna Namadi Nabhaved Graham Indriya Sevan Mukhe Hijivada Swayameva Sparatada. So he's saying that, quoting this verse, and this verse says that a person cannot understand Krishna, just as this verse is saying, by their mind, by their senses. They cannot perceive Krishna. It's just impossible. But by engaging the very same senses, And specifically, he says the tongue. By engaging the tongue in the service of Krishna, by how do we engage the tongue in the service of Krishna? By taking prasadam. By taking prasadam. So we get food, go to the local grocery stores, whatever, wherever you get your food, farmer's market. You buy it, or you grow it, and you cook some different recipes from higher taste, or whatever, wherever you get your recipes from, vegetarian recipes. You put in a little dish, right, and you offer to a picture of Krishna, to Srila Prabhupada, to Panchatattva Lord Chaitanya, and then it's prasadam, right? We hope that Krishna accepted it, which he's very merciful, so he does. But Krishna says, if you offer with love and devotion a leaf, flower, fruit, right, Bhagavad Gita, then he'll accept it. So, prasadam, by having prasadam, and by chanting the holy name of Krishna. So, these two processes, it says by these two processes, taking prasadam and chanting Hare Krishna, then Krishna reveals himself. He makes himself available, a relationship is developed, and one gets reciprocation from Krishna, and one will ultimately achieve love for Krishna by these two processes. Now, it is very simple, right? I mean, it's not so difficult to chant. It's not so difficult to take prasadam. In many ways, these are easy. And as devotees quote Srila Prabhupada, they say that, or at least, they say that the process of chanting is very simple, but the determination to continue may be difficult. So that's the question. Is it difficult or is it easy? And it really depends. And for many people, it is actually difficult. The process of Krishna consciousness. There's a lot of conditioning. There's a lot of materialism. There's a lot of selfish, and so on and so on. It's a challenge for people over time, usually. But just because something's difficult, because sometimes devotees ask that, or sometimes devotees may think like that. Oh, this is too difficult. Maybe I should just, I don't know, join the Salvation Army. Salvation Army used to be a fired up, like, we're going to save the world, preaching movement. And as far as I understand now, the Salvation Army, what they do, I mean, maybe I don't want to, deprecate Salvation Army or something, but as far as I understand, they have a lot of thrift stores, and people go drop their stuff off there, and then people buy their stuff. I don't know, maybe they give some charity to people, feed people or something, but my point is that over time that it's just a fact that group became super watered down. I mean, they were like preachers and save the world, and became more or less like what it is. So, but anyway, someone may say, I'll join the Salvation Army, or I don't know, I'll do so many things. I'll give up Krishna consciousness because it's difficult. It's too difficult, so let me do something else. So just because something's difficult doesn't mean we should do something else. In many cases, it being difficult is an indication that it's actually worth something. And people who ultimately think like that and act on that actually don't achieve much in life. Even if they say, oh, let me give up Krishna consciousness, too difficult, I'll go to this place or this path or that path because this is too difficult. They won't actually achieve much in those other paths either, because that mentality is there. That mentality has to be uprooted because it's not it's not a conducive mentality for advancement or progress. Like someone may say they may be going to UCSD, like your sister, right? She's probably trying to get a nice degree so she could get a nice, well-paying job. It's difficult. I mean, many hours of study, tests, homework. It's a lot of stress. I mean, they have a lot of stress, and especially if you're trying to get good grades. I mean, if you're just, spacing out and you don't really care, then it's not so difficult. But if you really care and you're trying to get A's, 4.0 or whatever. And Madhava Puri, we had one brahmachari here. He joined from SDSU. Now he's in LA, but it's amazing actually. He had a 4.0. I mean, like just through high school, through college. I mean, it's actually quite impressive. He got some, certificate or something. So someone may say, whether it's your sister or Madhava Puri, someone may say, "Oh, this is too difficult. This is too difficult. Let me go down to the local dispensary. I'm 21 years old, and I'm going to load up on some marijuana, some ganja, some pot, and I'm going to get stoned. And then I'm going to go out to, local bars and drink it up, and, and I'm going to start working at Burger King." So it's easier to work at Burger King. I mean, it actually is. You just go there and they're hiring, and you say, show your smiling face, right? Show them that you have the ability to, fry some fries or flip a burger or whatever, and, and yeah, you got a job. I mean, you have to work very hard, and, but minimum, what is it called? Minimum wage. But it's easy, not very difficult. So if someone wants to do that, that is an easier path than going to UCSD and struggling and trying to fight in the world to get a nice job. So now, of course, for somebody who lets themselves, I mean, anyways, there's different types of people. But for some people, working at Burger King wouldn't be easier because they'd just be suffering, a lot. But anyways, it's not complicated. It's, in many ways, you could say it's easier because it's less endeavor. So, but does that mean that does it mean that people should do that? No, because it's actually to strive for something that's worthwhile. That is good. That is a great endeavor. Because fight we must. I mean, everybody's fighting in this world for money, for power, for positions, for fighting for the peace of the world, fighting for the whales, like Greenpeace or whatever. So everybody's fighting for some type of cause. So the idea is that to fight in Krishna consciousness, it's the good fight. It's a good fight. It's worthwhile to strive for. So because something's too difficult doesn't mean we should give it up. And then one time Srila Prabhupada said about the rules. The rules and regulations. It's like, the rules, he said that if I introduced all the rules of deity worship, because on the altar you have to, can't just show up, and you have to be clean, body has to be clean, the clothes have to be clean, you have to, channel these mantras and, sip, Ganga water and, all these different things, to go on the altar. And you have to be second initiated by the guru, you have to be following so many, So it's not that anybody should just go. I mean, everybody's encouraged, all of you. You could take first and second initiation, go on the altar, dress the deities, worship the deities. All of you could do that. Some of you do it here, but everybody who doesn't do it, you could. But, there's some qualification there. So one time Prabhupada said about deity worship, he said, if I told you all the rules and regulations of deity worship, he said you would faint. You just follow, because there's a lot. And Prabhupada gave us some of the rules and regulations, and most of them, the most important ones. But if we try to follow everything, we'll just faint. Even nowadays, probably we don't follow everything. But the essence we do. So, so these, you could say, rules, these regulations, these things, they present challenges to us, and it may seem difficult. But again, that doesn't mean that it's not worth it. Just because maybe you don't have millions of people signing up, to become devotees, it doesn't mean that it's not important. You may go to the Rock Church, right? Which is a mega church. And I have nothing against Jesus Christ. I have nothing against Christianity. I was raised like that. I'm not harboring any ill feelings here, by the way. And it will be packed. It will be just packed, like thousands of people every Sunday. We don't have thousands of people here. They have thousands of people. Everybody's shouting and cheering, and the guy's there playing his guitar, and there's a lot going on there. But or other places. There's other places. But yeah, it's questionable how many of them are actually following, like very strictly, Jesus Christ, or trying to even follow. It's questionable. For example, Prabhupada would always stress meat eating. Why are you eating meat? Why are you eating meat? Why aren't you vegetarian? Jesus Christ said, "Thou shalt not kill." But the leaders aren't preaching, and therefore the followers aren't following either. Some of the slaughterhouses of America, they're all in the Bible. A lot of them are in the Bible Belt. It's a Bible Belt. So in other words, just because some place is packed doesn't necessarily mean that the quality of people are, their sincerity is. It doesn't mean that it's because the temple's not packed that is not important. That's my point. And the examples given of a place where they sell diamonds, diamond rings and whatever, diamond necklaces and earrings, and you may not get tons of people in there every day. You may get 1, 2, 3, 4 people actually going in and buying something a day. But you go to these, Halloween costume places and all these, but yeah, people just load up. They buy all types of stuff. So in other words, you may have to pay more to get something more valuable. So the last thing I wanted to say was that Jayadvaita Swami, his Holiness Jayadvaita Swami, and his Holiness Bajranarayan Swami, they were brahmacharis in Los Angeles at the same time together, young men. And Bajranarayan Swami tells this story, so I don't think he'll mind me saying it, but he said he was having difficulties. It wasn't like severe difficulties or something, but, challenges within the ashram. And he was thinking, thoughts passed through his mind that, maybe I should just leave. My brother, I come from a bit of a wealthy family. My brother, he's always encouraged me, hey man, let's go. We're going off to some island, to go surfing and, enjoy life. And he's there in the ashram kind of struggling and whatever. So he was thinking like that. And then he went up to Jayadvaita Swami, who was a brahmacharya then, and he said, you know what, this is just too difficult. I'm just thinking about leaving, and what's the point? And then Jayadvaita Swami was agreeing with him. He was going, yeah, you know what, it is difficult. And and then Bajranarayan Swami was kind of surprised, like, why is he agreeing with me? So then they went on in the conversation, and then Jayadvaita Swami was agreeing with him, and he said, maybe Vishnu John Swami, but anyways, he said, you know what? He said, there's only one thing more difficult than being a devotee. And then he said, being a non-devotee. So that's more difficult. It's actually more difficult to be non-devotee than it is to be a devotee. So the conclusion is that, yeah, we can't understand Krishna with our material intelligence and mental speculation, mind and all that, or all our different material means, but we can understand Krishna by the process which Krishna gave himself, chanting the holy names, taking prasad, and the whole devotional process. And in Krishna consciousness may seem difficult, but that doesn't mean it's not important. And that over time, actually, it's not difficult. And it becomes not difficult by us getting the blessings, the mercy, the kindness, the guidance of devotees. So that's the idea, to engage in the process, to get the association of devotees, and then it becomes easy. And then Krishna will give us intelligence how to progress towards him. And this is all achieved by the mercy of the devotees, and specifically Srila Prabhupada says here, one could understand Krishna as he is by studying the transcendental literature under the guidance of a bona fide spiritual master. So one has to eventually accept a bona fide spiritual master, a guru, and then the connection is more firmly established and one can make more progress. All right, so does anyone have any questions? Okay. Or comments?
So how to preach then from this platform? Like, you cannot understand Krishna with your material world, with your brain.
Yes.
And when you try to explain people, you appeal to their logic or somehow.
How do you appeal to their logic?
Yeah, because you said you cannot. How do they even theoretically accept?
Yeah. How do they theoretically accept? Okay. Well, I mean, it really depends, because Krishna says that there's 4 people who don't surrender to him, and there's 4 people who do surrender to him. So it says the 4 people who don't surrender to him are Namam Duskritinam Mudha Prapadyante Naradama Maya Pratigyana Asuram Bhavamashita. So it says the mudhas. So the mudhas are just, Prabhupada translates that as beasts of burden. They're just hard-working, materially people, and that's about it. Just hard work and kind of sense gratification, hard work. And so mudhas, maya pratigana, their knowledge has been stolen by illusion. Means all the philosophers and materialistic philosophers, materialistic scientists, all these other people, they're so intelligent that, materially intelligent, that they just reject it. So they don't surrender. And then there's asuram bhavamashita, the atheists, and they out and out enemies of God. So there's different categories of people who just don't surrender. So those people, usually, we don't really preach to. Naradamas, which means the lowest of mankind. So interesting enough is that in that purport, Prabhupada says that 99.99% of the world population is in the category of Naradamas, lowest of mankind. So these are people who don't surrender to Krishna. So what are we supposed to do? I mean, that's a big percentage. So Prabhupada says that the mercy of, but the 2 typical Naradamas, Jagai and Madai, which we've heard of recently, Dravida Prabhu mentioned them in his talk on Gaur Pranim. I mentioned them the previous Sunday on my talk. And then on Nityananda's appearance day, whatever, I gave the talk and I mentioned again. So 3 times recently, Jagan Mada. So these kind of wretched brothers who just did all types of horrible things. So they're typical Naradamas. But it's said by the mercy of Nityananda, who is, you could say, the devotee, they got delivered. So Prabhupada says that similarly, the Naradamas of this world, if they get the association of devotees, they could also be freed. So I guess they're not. It's not like they're crossed out, but they need some association. But then there's the pious people. Means people who are good, the good-natured people. They are in distress. They're inquisitive. They want to know what the absolute truth is, or they're curious, and then they're after money. So they come to Krishna. So yeah, there's different types of people. And some people, you could say, are more logical or rational than others, and some people may be more emotional based. So it really depends on the person, and also their background, what faith they have, and what do they have faith in. But usually someone has to come to the point where, they want something more in life. They have to become dissatisfied, usually. So, and then at that platform of dissatisfaction, then they could inquire, and they'll actually be receptive. Or else it's like you might as well talk to the wall or something. Maybe usually probably won't go too far. I mean, of course, maybe you could plant some seeds in there and whatever, something could fructify later, but. Because, like, for example, I mean, I talk to a lot of people, actually. I mean, talk to a lot of people at the lounge, talk to a lot of people at the Sunday feast, and just in general, I talk to a lot of people. And I've noticed that people who are dissatisfied, then they could hear better, more sincerely. And people who are just satisfied, they have whatever, the sun is shining, they got their fruit drink, like one devotee said, yeah, SanDiego's a little difficult to spread Krishna consciousness because, things are a little nice. And he said, you go out on book distribution and, hey, you want a book? And the guy says, man, I got, the sun is shining, I got my fruit juice, I got my spiritual girlfriend. Hey man, what do I really, what do I need, So I'm not suffering, yeah. So then it's like, okay, like how far are you going to get? I mean, you're not going to really get too far. I mean, the guy thinks, or the woman, or they think they're good. So it's like, they have no need to come to the Krishna lounge or come to whatever. But there are some people out there that, okay, fine, there's sun shining, I have my spiritual girlfriend, I have fruit juice, but there must be something out there more, like, higher platforms of happiness. So if you do meet someone like that, they're more easily able to accept such things. So you start out, okay, who are we, right? We're not our bodies, and that's one important thing to mention. And the happiness of Krishna consciousness. And so, yeah, it really depends. Does that answer? Okay. You're welcome. Does anyone have any other questions or comments?